And welcome back, everybody, to another BigD podcast with the EXFIL team. I am joined yet again by Irontaxi, one of the developers of the upcoming game EXFIL, as we're pretty much titled in this. Now, we haven't covered EXFIL for a little while. Everyone's been super busy, and we wanted to wait a little while because there was a lot that you guys were sort of developing in the background, and this is pretty much going to line up with your launch on the 11th of December into
Mhm.
early access, isn't it?
Yep.
Not yeah,
Yep.
yep, perfect. Early
True early
access.
access. Yeah.
To early access, yeah,
Yeah.
from the closed group testing.
Mhm.
Now, we've got a fair bit to be able to cover, and we're going to have a lot more that
Sure.
we're going to be able to cover in future podcasts as we
Yep.
keep going through. But we didn't want to really saturate the scene and try and make too much of a hype
Mhm.
for it because we've sort of seen we've seen some games jump on some hype train, and we've
Yep.
been accused of that in the past, and then they go
Yeah.
down. So we're always in it for the long haul here. So I've got a few different questions for you, and I'm going to timestamp it. Everybody watching
Sure.
on YouTube, so that way you can follow along with these, and then just jump to whatever you want that's sort of going to interest you, and then iTaxi is going to be dropping some spicy goss at the end of this that I don't even know. I told him don't tell me. We're gonna listen to this at the end and get a bit of surprise.
Yep.
So thanks so much again for taking your Canadian time to be able to come chat to me
No
down in land
worries.
down under here. Really do
Yeah.
appreciate it. Smidge of a time difference is always
I
fun to
I
work
will
around.
as of second end of second week of January, I'll be in the Philippines again, so I'll be on your time zone.
Ah,
So
that'll
if
make
we
life
talk
easy.
again, I'll be down there. I'll be down there for 6 weeks. So if we talk again, it'll be good timing.
Just come down South Victoria, have a traveller,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
we'll be there. Shout out to Travis
With
Fimmel if he
cocktails.
ever watches this. Now, let's jump into this while we can, and we're going to make all these
Yep.
questions really easy for people to be able to follow along with. So,
Mhm.
first out of four questions that I have for you is each game mode. Now, we sort of covered this in the past,
Yep.
but I want to be
Yep.
able to revisit it. A lot of the principle of it is exfil. It's with the name. It's quite
Yep.
obvious, but those you've hinted at the past are obviously going to change or
Mhm.
add more in. Features are always subject to change with games as they evolve. But what will each game mode scenario look like upon launch? Can you just quickly run us through exactly what players can expect to be able to do within the game for each
Yep.
game mode?
Yep. So I guess there's a lot of facets to this, but I'm gonna just like encapsulate it as tight as I can. Um, there's two core game modes we're launching with for the first stage of early access. More game modes will just be coming continually. That's the goal, and that's the way we're building things. Um, the main exfil, or I guess exfil is the theme. That's exfil is
Ex-
the theme, so that if we're doing things, we will be infilling and exfilling, and that kind of gives you a wrapper to put around the game
Bit
modes,
of an
essentially.
umbrella sort of term for what each one is, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Now the classic exfil mode, we're calling it exfil classic, um, is very straightforward. There's basically two phases in the game mode. The first phase is everybody spawns. First of all, and I guess this again, a blanket wrapper is that we always have random spawns. So your team doesn't always spawn from the same location. There's a bunch of possible spawn locations, and you always randomize them. So that's one element to just give you different. If you think about the map as a bunch of lines and vectors towards an objective, the idea is that every time you play the match, the vectors change. So if you drew lines between all of the teams and the objectives, you would just see that every single time you generate a round, you get different lines. So you visit different areas of the map. It's not like typical games where you're going to go down the same lanes all the time. In fact, it changes constantly.
Nothing
So you
worse
may
than
not
having linear gameplay.
yeah, you may never see some areas of the map. I know a couple areas of the map that I've never played on, and I made the
And you made
maps,
them.
and I've never played around in certain areas, and I'm just like, how is that possible? But it's possible. Um, so that game mode, the idea being there that it's not, it seems very monolithic in that it's one game mode, but it really isn't one game mode. It's more like a flexible game mode framework that can be customized in the way that it generates so that you get a bunch of different styles of play. So we have the idea that we have these presets within the game mode. So we're just making a hardcore one today. So the hardcore one will be like, okay, spawn us as far away as possible at the edge of the maps to give us as much room to be as strategic as possible. Give me the biggest possible circle for where the helicopter could have crashed that we need to search for, because we don't want any hints. We don't want any help. We want to have to actually scan the territory, and take our time. And that's a big disadvantage in that mode is like the helicopter zone can be up to, I think it's about 500 meters radius, which is huge. Like
That's
you
that's
can
a
have a
bit of
huge.
ground to cover.
Yeah, you got a bit of ground to cover. Now, keeping in mind, 4 teams, if you're using that mode, now you got 4 teams, you could have up to 8 people on each team. Now there's a lot more guys covering that ground, right? And a lot more eyes. Also, depending on the biome, visibility is totally different. The biome and the weather, actually, and the elevation. So there's a lot of different factors that go into it. But the point being that if you wanted to play EXFIL, we've got like Easy Company is one of the, well-known squad groups. They're really interested in the hardcore style.
Yeah, I've had a little bit of dealings with Easy. Really
Yeah, so as an
sweaty
Oh
lads.
yeah, yeah. Which is
Real
cool. Like
sweaty.
be sweaty if that's what you got to do, right? But
That's it.
um, so the example mode that we're putting together, the hardcore mode we're working on today. So these are the examples. So there's no tactical pinging, which is when you can look out and essentially point at
Just
something and mark it.
yeah, market for everybody
Yeah.
else. Yep.
So you can turn off the tactical pings. There's no. We have the colored armbands on the shoulders. You can turn those off, so it's pure camouflage. The only
You actually have
markings
to
are your
know your
team
friends so
markings.
you don't actually shoot them.
Yep, and use your GPS and use your position, just like squad in that sense, right? But you'll have markings on your helmet and the back of your vest and stuff like that, but they're small, so you really need to identify your targets.
Communication.
Um,
Heaven forbid you communicate to be able to see who's
yeah,
where.
heaven forbid, right? Yeah.
That's good.
Oh,
That's a good
oh, in
mode.
that mode as well, when you die, you stay in the dead cam watching your other teammates, so you don't get out into the free cam. So you're kind of locked in there. That's also something that's in the hardcore mode. There's something else, the pings in the hardcore mode, but there's about 4 or 5 things that you can really make it hardcore with, and I'm just failing to remember the other one or two. But
that's fine. That gives a good understanding in terms of the game modes launching will be pretty similar, but you can really adapt and change exactly
that's
how you
that's the
play
point.
those.
Yeah,
That and
yeah,
that's going to be good to be able to for retention, where you can start off easy and
yeah,
then you can really
yeah.
change how that how that really looks for you.
And it's not even easy as hard as it's big and small too. So if you're gonna do 4v4 you can bring the spawns in. You have a lot of customization around that,
Yeah,
so you can make the combat areas tighter and smaller and faster.
and that'd be
So
good. So
round
you can have a fast game, you
Yeah,
can have a long game. So just
if you
really
want,
change and
if you
adapt.
want. Yeah, yeah. Right now, the long games are on 20-minute range.
Yeah,
That's like
and
20,
you remember you
30 would be
covering that
really long.
because you
Yeah,
wanted to be able to like jump on, play around, play a few rounds, and not have to
yeah,
be like some games where you hell let loose. Like holy crud, hell let loose. Sometimes it's the timer that
yeah,
that ends the game, and that's like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
40 minutes, and you're just like, oh, just let it end, just let
Oh,
the
we
mercy end.
yeah, we actually put a timer in too, so you can customize the round now. So if you do want to have it on
Amazing.
a tight timer, if you want it to be 15-minute cap to keep people's urgency up there, then you can do that if you want.
That's good. That's good to be
Again,
able to have.
it's up to you, right? That's the whole point. Yeah.
Now, speaking of customization, this leads into the second question we
Hmm.
have for you today. And what's the being in Unreal 5? I know that this answer is going to be yes because
Yeah.
of how customizable it is. But what are the weapon uniform customizations? What's that going to look like down the track? Because if you're talking
Mhm.
accuracy, then yes, you might find that in your special forces, because let's be honest, these guys are pretty much special forces. They they do customize their own weapons
Mhm.
to a certain
Mhm.
degree to be able to go
Yep.
for their liking. If it's moving the laser left, right handed uniforms, I know that if you're keeping it real, there's not too much deviation that it can have.
Yeah.
But will there be any flexibility in terms of gun or uniform customization for people to personalize things?
Yeah, yeah. So we actually already have it in game, the framework of it, and we've added a preview of it for the early access. So right now, there's again a couple pieces to this, but one of the pieces is that we have a founders DLC that we're going to launch alongside of it. So people who want to give us more support, you basically get a few cosmetic things, and one is a baseball cap.
Oh, that's
Now,
cool.
the hilarious thing is, if you put the baseball cap on, you no longer have a helmet.
Yeah,
So
so well,
you no longer get the protection of a helmet because we're modeling all the damage based on the actual.
that's
Uh,
really good.
so the
Damage.
cosmetic models the damage. So if you got a baseball cap on, you're taking a lot more headshots.
Well, you're
Um,
taking one headshot. So,
yes, actually, you're right. You're right. In exfil, you're taking one headshot. That's it. Yeah, exactly.
that's good. That's good.
Whereas the helmet, you can take conceivably, you could take two deflections off the helmet. The next shot's gonna kill you somewhere.
Yeah,
It's
and
it's gonna
that
kill
would
you.
change depending on whilst we're talking about that. So damage obviously will be affected via
Yeah,
your uniform customizations and all that sort of stuff. Does
yeah,
that mean
yeah,
that you've
yeah.
allowed for does a 5.56 round do different damage to a 7.62 versus
Def-
50 cal? So
definitely,
that's
definitely,
really going to be a big thing. So you might
yeah,
look sweet with your cap backwards and your sunnies on, but as soon as that 50 cal
yeah,
comes through your frontal lobe, it's not going to
yeah.
exist anymore.
Yeah, and actually, the 50 cal wouldn't matter anyway because it
No,
would just go 50 cal as well.
pink
Yeah,
mist.
yeah, yeah.
Nothing but
But
pink
what,
mist.
so what we're doing now is just again previewing people on those things that are coming. So you'll see a lot of that. It's already in game. You can already change. We actually have different body armors right now, so you can go. And again, as a preview for early access, it doesn't have the full functionality. But an example of body armor is we are going to give a buff debuff on movement speed, and we're going to do
That
that.
would
We're going to
be
add
heavier
weight.
versus
We
lighter.
yeah, we already have the back end to add weight. We just haven't gotten. We want to sit down and I guess it's ironically weigh everything out, and weigh all the options, and then start applying weight to everything, and then decide what is the scale of influence of weight. So at what
Yeah.
point, plus or minus, does weight start slowing you down and speeding you up? And in my mind, we're talking 5%, 7% kind of, adjustment to speed and things like that. But if you're the heavy, big machine gun lot, and you're also carrying all your extra ammo,
You're not going to be
yeah, you
sprinting.
you might
That's
well you might not be able to keep up to your
yeah.
to your squad, and so your squad's going to need to consider that, right?
That's pretty
It's
realistic.
not just
Like,
it is. It's not just about picking a role. It's about, dude, I need you to carry ammo for me because
yeah.
I can't keep up
well,
otherwise, right?
well, that's funny that he based because that's how armor was like. Like, you'd have your heavy machine gunner or your anti tank, which I always ran as. Your
Yeah,
stamina was horrendous. You'd run about 10
right.
meters and then the guy's stuffed. Versus your small arms, but then there's drawbacks obviously to each one, and then there's pros and cons. I suppose to exactly, yeah, sure, you're
Well,
slow, but
it's
that tree line doesn't exist. Plus the people behind it.
yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah, and another example of that is you could lighten up your armor, so no helmet, and just have a chest plate essentially,
just raw
and you
dog the
you could
battlefield.
well
Just
you could get a positive buff, right? You could have an increase in movement, so maybe you balance that out against more ammo or something,
just start adding helium
Yeah.
balloons. You'd be right
Mhm, mhm.
laughing.
Yeah, 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 yeah. But
Now,
we don't want to again, it's not the point of the game. It's more just about giving players some options to, and again, the goal is there's twofold goal in that thing. One is we have a pillar. We always talk in terms of pillars in terms of design in interior in the game. So one pillar is I want you to be able to look over and look at the guy you always play with. If it's Ethereal, if it's your case, I should know that's you. I
yeah,
should be able to look over and say, "Oh, that's Ethereal, and he's our medic." So we've started including some of the specialized utility items on your kit. So when you put them on, you'll see them on your back. You'll see the medic bag. You'll see the other stuff on your back. So you'll know that your guy is carrying a drone because he's got the drone backpack, and things like that. So the idea again is to be able to look at your teammates, know their role, and know who they are.
identify
So
them through those
identifying
customizations.
markers, customizations, but then also we're thinking about some maybe some 3 letters on the helmet of your initials, and
Yeah,
then
bring out back the old
customization
Vietnam era
patches.
stuff.
Yeah, so just something just to get you there, so that the human information that we lose when we're playing a game, which is awareness,
Is
is
there?
given to you in other ways, but they're not UI because one of our pillars is to, if we can ever take anything off the UI, we do.
Yeah, that's
We
really
It's one
good.
of our internal pillars. So
I'm
we
glad
did it with
you're
the
finding that finer detail with that customization. And so some of those finer details that even though they might seem small, but those one percenters can really add up between a run and
yeah
gun
we
shooter to that. Yeah.
Uh, As an example for that, we just added tracking all of the bullets and all the mags, but we decided to actually take it off the UI in the right corner. And now the mags only come up when you're interacting with your weapon. So if you'll do a check, which we haven't added yet, but if you do a check, you'll see your mags. If you do a reload, it pops up, it just fades in, and you see all your mags. You see their relatively level of fullness, and it always takes the fullest one because we're not into mag packing and stuff, right?
Oh, nothing worse.
But
Just
but it will just show you.
automatically
It'd be like,
reload my mags with the bullets, please.
yeah, yeah. But it'll just show you this how many mags you have, this is their relative fullness, and as soon as you're not interacting with your weapon, it disappears.
Because technically that is correct. If you're not looking at something, interacting with it, then you should be visually aware of it. So
Exactly.
that's a
Yeah.
that's a smart
Yeah.
detail. I love that.
Yeah, yeah. And then hopefully, our dream scenario is that you look down at your vest to check how many mags you have.
And it
That
shows
would
it there.
be that would be the dream. Yeah, yeah.
That'd be
That's what
good.
we're gonna try, but we don't know if that's entirely accessible, but we'll see.
We'll visit that in the next podcast, hopefully.
Yeah, yeah.
So this brings us then to question 3 in terms of you talked a little bit about maps and exactly where you spawn and all that sort of stuff. Now
Hmm.
you have currently 6 and they're viewable on
Yep.
Steam. Roughly, they're not called maps; they're called ops for each one of those.
Yep. Yep.
What are they going to look like in the future? Because I know that you said there's a bit of scalability that you can do. Like the maps are a set stage, but then you can
Hmm.
increase or decrease where your spawn area and all that sort of stuff is.
Yep.
Now, maps are so important in games where if you don't have a scale in terms of let's look at Squad, because it's something,
Hmm.
you being one of the original developers for Squad and me me
I
currently
was I
playing
was
it
I
sort
was
of
gonna preface that myself. I would be like,
so
well, I have
much
a little bit
so
of
much easier.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know the size of Samari versus the size of Kohat. In
Yeah.
terms of people want to be able to have, even though you might not use good 70%
Yep.
of maps, which I
Hmm.
feel like Squad has a guiltiness for in some of those, where
Yeah.
I've seen
Yeah.
areas of the maps which are just like, they just thought, we won't bother with anything here. No one's ever
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
go here. It's just barren wasteland.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
people want map scalability. They want different maps, different sizes, different
Hmm.
terrains. Like it's people are they get bored quite quickly. So what
Yeah.
are they going to look like in the future in terms of too many
Yeah.
maps we know is bad, but having a variety is what you want in good? Have you
Is
got any plans for what
give
that's
me
going to look like?
give me an example of too many maps being bad.
Let's try and see if we've got.
Because I
uh,
don't agree with that
to,
necessarily.
I found that with Squad, for example,
Yeah.
too many maps went bad because then what it meant is that they weren't polishing and focusing on the
Okay.
maps that they
Okay.
currently had. So let's put in that
Gotcha.
aspect of having
Okay.
having
Yeah,
20 polished maps is good, but having
right. Right.
20
Right. Right.
maps, but then 10 of them are really buggy or there's just
Yeah.
half-assed
Yeah.
terrain. So what's that going to look like in the future with your 6 maps? Are you going to expand on that currently
Yeah.
6, or are you just going to?
Hmm.
Where's that going?
I think yeah. Okay, that's a good question. So I think
Thank
the
you.
very
Thought of it
nature,
myself.
yeah, the very nature of early access is that the maps are going to evolve. That's how it's going to be. They aren't final, maybe ever.
Nothing will be good.
Es-
Good answer.
Especially from an asset point of view, we want to purposefully. Actually, we have the resources now. Um, we have some contract artists and stuff, and we're starting to replace things. Where the end goal is for everything to be bespoke in that we had a hand in creating it all and putting it in the game and making sure it was all ours. Whereas, of course, as a small 4-man team and me, the only environment composition guy doing 6 maps, everything we've taken from other sources, we've repurposed, we've done whatever we have to do to get there, right? Um, so right now, I would say the maps are all in some mid state, so they're all completely functional. They've been decorated, but they're not in their final states.
All completed with
Um,
floating rocks and trees, or
no, more like if you go in a warehouse and like the entire interior of the warehouse there's nothing in it. That's still gonna be a thing for a while.
yeah.
Depending on the map and how mature it is, that's just gonna be a reality.
Well, that's what we
Um,
found with a lot of maps. Is you look at maps, ones like Squad, PUBG, all the houses there, tons of houses, nothing in them.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's
yeah,
those details that you talk about where it's like, sweet, we've added 5 new maps, but the current maps, they've no detail to them. So
yeah,
it's those
yeah,
little
yeah, yeah.
pieces. So
So
you do plan to expand them. They will evolve. They will
oh
change.
yeah, definitely. I
Can
think the big features that will change is we want to continue to make the environments more interactive. So anything we have some plans for like surveillance cameras all around the map that are hooked up to observation stations that
that'd be cool.
you can patch into with your utilities for so one of your utilities you could bring if you're a kind of a spook, operator, is a system so it lets you patch into the camera system, so you can look around the map. You can, essentially do special ops. The idea is to just have the environment be very um,
Interactive.
alive, interactive.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So
constantly
the big
moving and
the big
changing.
pass that I've done in the last couple months is like everything has gates on it now that are openable and openable doors, openable gates, all that
That's a
kind of
nice
stuff.
feature.
But that's been months, like, just making that all integrated. All the lights are on switches and can be shot out now.
Oh,
So
that's good. That'll create.
if you go to the airfield, you can turn off the lights,
Now, will
and
that
things.
affect AI, for example, in terms of not AI, bloody or brains
Yeah,
dying.
the AI.
The AI. So in other words,
Yeah,
if it's
NPCs.
darker and
Yeah.
they don't have NVGs and it's situational awareness,
Well, they
because
will
that
definitely
brings
be
back some
affected.
old Splinter Cell days. Shoot out a light and then they
Yeah,
can't see
they'll.
you 3 feet in front of you.
I was gonna say they'll definitely be if they should be affected by the relative brightness. So yeah, absolutely.
That'll be
Like
good.
taking out the lights is I think it's even effective now, even in just multiplayer, PvP, it is a factor. And I've just started exploring some underground areas, so we're gonna I've had a long plan to do a very extensive bunker kit. So we've just started that bunker kit and I've started integrating it into some of the maps. So there's some spots where you can go for several hundred meters underground in an underground facility that has like cells and all this other kind of stuff, and we're not going to stop on that stuff. In fact, one of the future biomes that I want to expand into, I've got kind of a fork in the road right now between desert and jungle. Jungle's my
Oh,
dream. I can't wait to do jungle. It's my like it'll
why
be my
not
opus.
both? Why
Yeah,
not
yeah, right,
both? Come
exactly.
on.
Jungle will be my opus, but if I go and do a little like maybe 2 maps of desert, I have some ideas to do some massive airfields, but the airfields are like 50-50 above ground and underground
Hmm.
bunkers.
You know
Like
what? You
way
could
we're going
combine them.
multi-level underground.
Let's look at Africa.
Well,
You've got
jungles.
jungle
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
meets desert. Come on, do both. Do both. Why not?
Yeah, we could the desert's the easy part so to speak, but um my goal from specifically my responsibilities in the project is yeah, keep adding biomes. Like I want to probably have one, two, at least 6 biomes, and the goal is to have 2 maps in each biome. So there you're looking at a base of 12 maps. Map size is going to stay at 2 kilometers by 2 kilometers for a good reason. We only have 32 players max on the map anyway.
Yeah, so
It's not like
that's a
Squad
good
with
point that you
100.
mentioned then.
Yeah, and our plans are to take it to console. It always has been. So it's primarily a PC title, but we're sizing it intentionally so that porting it to console. Now that doesn't mean crossplay or anything like that, but we see EXFIL as a gateway drug game to milsim, to like Squad and Arma and stuff like that. So we want it to be properly sized to be able to go to that platform in the future, and that's what that size is. We know that we can fit it in there. Games like Squad and Arma and things like that. I mean, I think they're making attempts to go to console, but good luck.
Not
Like
anytime soon, but this
it's going to
perfectly
be
leads on to
difficult.
my next question,
Yeah,
actually, before I
yeah.
get too deep in it. And that comes down to question four of player retention. Now, you just
Hmm.
mentioned that in terms of console, which is one way of doing player
Yeah,
retention. And if we look at what Helldivers did, and that's probably not released to they should have brought
yeah,
it
yeah.
across. Imagine how Xbox was just like, when Xbox joins the crew and all the Helldivers are just
Yeah,
blaming into the planets
yeah,
now.
yeah.
That's obviously going to be one good way. Now, map retention, all the finer details, map expansions, everything will keep player retention, but
Sure.
by expanding through the game onto different platforms, obviously console may end up blowing well past what PC does, or PC may.
You know what though? It's not a
But is that going to
priority
help
for us.
the? No, no.
Yeah.
But it's all pieces of the puzzle. But is there
Yes,
anything?
yes, yes,
Is there
yes.
anything else that you want to be able to try and do to be able to keep player
Of
attention? Because it's
of
it's a
course, of course.
struggling. It's a bit of a dirty question because I mean, there's not really an
No,
answer.
no,
It's
no.
it's constant.
No,
There's
I
a
I
lot of
do I
things.
do I do have an answer, and it's not a
Give
dirty question.
give it to me.
Um, and it's one of the core pillars of this project is the scenario editor and the Zeus like mode that we're going to
Like
build
Arma
this
3
year.
mode sort of inspired.
So I can quickly go through the motivations and the experience that led me to where we are now, but the idea was Squad. I was a huge proponent of modding in Squad. I learned the hard way that modding, unless you really focus on it, is very hard developmentally to support and do correctly. And I don't think, just my opinion, I don't think Squad ever did it justice from a modding point of view, and maybe nobody's fault, but that's just a simple reality. And one of the reasons, I've on the company side, there are a bunch of reasons, such as you need to commit to it, and you need to have the right resources there. But on the user-generated content side, i.e., the people who are the actual modders, the one thing I didn't really anticipate with Squad, and this is even 10 years ago, is modding's really hard, and it only got harder. It
Yes,
didn't it
we've
didn't
seen
get
it
easier, right?
over the years. We've definitely
Yeah.
seen it over the years. People
So,
try their
so
hardest, but
yes, I
never
know.
quite make it happen.
So in my head, I'm like, you know what? it's all nice to have modding, and it does serve a certain audience, and maybe there's a space for it in the future, and maybe it's a dream, maybe it's year 3 or year 4 or something like that where it really makes sense. Or maybe a team comes and says, you know what, you guys did an amazing job. Can we do a Vietnam full conversion of EXFIL? Awesome. Yeah, let's go for it. I'd be totally into that. But just sitting there as a mod, straight open for anybody to mod on, I just know that we spend a lot of energy supporting it because I've been there. And unless you're supporting it properly, they're not going to be successful. Postscriptum was they were more of a standalone. They weren't quite a mod. They had the intention to do it standalone on their own, but immediately we supported them. They would have failed without it. That's the truth. They would have not been able to build their builds. They wouldn't have been able to finish their maps initially, and then we brought them on as a title at OWI. Um, that was the same with a lot of the maps. Like Chance Bra, as we all infamously know him.
We all
Uh,
know Chance.
yep.
Everybody in the squad scene knows Chance.
He brought in maps, and we purchased maps off of him at OWI, and but I had to put 40 to 80 hours in a map just to clean them up, just to get them ready to go in squad.
Mm.
So again, it was really hard. So anyway, those were the things that informed me to be like, okay, well, I still really believe in user generated content, and I think it's one of the things, if you can do it properly, it's going to help you keep your product evergreen. It's going to help you keep, in a sense, I have this dream of being the real spiritual successor to Delta Force. For me personally, that's what I'm missing. I'm missing the experiences I had in Delta Force, which was the old Delta Force 2, which I don't know if you were around or played that at all, but
I
I had
can't
a
recall playing it, no.
okay. It was heavily modifiable, and one of the key components of the user generated content portion of that is that you could just open any map and build your own scenario, put down your own spawners, build your own objectives. You could just do that. And we're talking, this is a 20-year-old game, 20 some odd years. Um, we want to model that again, and it's been really exciting to see it kind of evolve because we're already laying the groundwork for it. So all of our game modes right now are built in components. And those components are already configurable, which is what we are exposing to you to in the game modes. And the long end of that is that you'll in the near future, in the next 6 to 8 months, is our goal. You'll be able to open one of our blank maps, place some spawners, place some enemy objectives, place some flags, caps, whatever it may be. Save that, connect that logic together, save that, and you have a new game mode to play with your friends or to share with other people or to do whatever you want with. And as soon as you combine the NPCs and the AI, these now become PvP, co-op, and single player.
And
There's no
that will
difference,
keep player
and
retention.
that is the player retention. Yeah,
That's a player retention.
right.
Now we're going to cut that there. You've answered
Yep,
so
sure.
much, and it's going to be amazing in terms of what value hopefully people are going to get out of this before this releases in a couple of days on the 11th of December, or
Hmm.
if you're listening to it after. But you've got a spicy something you need to tell me.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of life is connections, I guess, and like the relationships you build, through various serendipitous experiences and people you meet and these paths you carve in the various industries you're in. But we were just, I guess, really fortunate to kind of come full circle recently and be reintroduced to somebody who was actually one of the founders of. So he was one of the original creators of Arma. He was in that original team or group that were owners of Arma in Bohemia, and he actually, I actually approached them because through some mutual connections. But one of the things we were finding is with the EXFIL team that we're totally fine to build the game, but we don't have the capacity to put it in the market, like from a marketing side. It's just with
It's a
four
lot
or
of
five
work.
guys. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's let's just be realistic. It's too much work. That's the reality. Like we could see where even if we're successful in the short term, we're not going to have a good quality of life, and we're not 15-year-old kids anymore either, right? So we're looking around, and obviously the big thing for us is we don't we have no interest in having somebody else control our product. We're completely independent. We're completely self-funded. So we're not that attractive to somebody who is a strategic investor or something of that nature, or like even a Tencent. They wouldn't be that interested in us because we're not willing to give them control, right?
Yes.
Which is ultimately what they're looking for. So anyhow, this other relationship we had, we got back in contact with them, and it turns out that this person, whose name is David Ligeti, actually owns Microprose now. So we actually talked to Microprose, and after a very brief conversation, we've decided to bring them on as a partner to actually publish the title for us.
So you're going
And
to
they are,
have a big publisher now.
yeah, and they don't own any of us. There's no investment. It's purely a publishing relationship. It's profit based. So we maintain the vast majority of the company. Like actually, sorry, we retain 100% of the control of the company. But in terms of sharing, we're just profit sharing with them as a publisher. So they're going to basically take their chunk and take that and do their marketing and put their bet on us basically. And it was really interesting because like, obviously my background in Squad and David's background in Arma, there was a lot of dovetail. Like we ended up knowing a lot of different people. So we were like, wow, holy crap. So
That's
we
a
sat
small
down.
world.
Yeah, we all sat down and pounded this out over about 3 days. And that never happens. Like you don't usually get that much convergence between two teams. Um, and one of the huge things is they own Ground Branch, or they publish and maintain Ground Branch now.
And that's a title
Um,
and a half to have under your belt.
and it's a great title. One of the nice things is they're also a development studio. So one of the things that we're really struggling with is having things to accelerate the development that we're lacking in animators, special effects, things like that. So part of our deal with them is they're going to provide those things for us so that we don't
God.
have to slow down. So the whole
EXFIL
goal
is
is
about to blast forward
it's
into the
about
future.
yeah, that's the goal. The goal is that we just get an accelerant and we don't have to be especially me, I don't have to be distracted by the marketing side. I can just work with them on, whatever they need us to do, but I can focus on making the game, which is, dude, that's been my dream. It's just like, just let me make the game. It's like, I know what this game is in my head. Me and Loki are very closely aligned. Roberto is very closely aligned in his goals and all the goals we have collectively. And we've just brought on a new programmer, Chemo, who used to be the lead programmer of Squad for many, many years, for a couple of years, 3 years or 2 or 3 years. And he's like the final piece of the puzzle. And now we accelerate. And having Microprose come in with literally rocket fuel up our butts, you
It's
know?
just gonna.
Yeah.
That is extremely exciting news.
So we were super stoked, and we were a little bit worried. Like it has to have the right framing on it. And people need to understand why we're doing it. Even if it's good for us, I mean, it's going to be good for the players too. Trust me. Like the deal we've made is not normal. It's not. I would say Microprose and David are atypical. I've been through a lot of investment and things like that. Now this is very abnormal. So I think it was really they saw something they love, and they had a go at playing it with kind of covertly while we were doing some internal testing. And they were just like, "Holy crap! Like I want to play this."
And you've all the
So
hard work's done. Like everything that we've covered within these podcasts, it's clearly shown there's passion from the team, there's the willingness from the community, and then if more or less like ex Arma and Squad and developers and
yeah,
everyone's jumping on board, it clearly means
yeah,
that
yeah,
there's vision for this. So I mean, if
yeah.
you're here now playing this game, then and hear back this, just remember where you are before it just went boom and then just
Yeah,
exploded. So
I find it hilarious. I was saying to one of my partners today, Roberto, I was like, this sounds really weird, but for me, getting past the next week or two or the kind of initial launch, even if it's a little bit rough, like I understand early access is tough, right?
I just wait
Especially
for all the
nowadays.
bloody early access Steam reviews
Yeah,
when people
which
shit on
which
things,
is
but
which
that's
is
just
cool.
normal.
Go ahead and shit on me, right? For me, it's actually like it's kind of like a new dawn where I know I've got the next 2 years or a year and a half. We're planning early access for about a year plus. Like not like Squad where it was in early access for
For
3 years.
five, like oh, I felt
No,
like longer than that. Holy
yeah,
damn,
yeah.
didn't go
It was at
full
least three
access.
years, but anyway, that's kind of our timeline. And in my head, I'm like, man, this is awesome. So all I need to do for the next 24 months is make a freaking awesome game. I don't need to worry about monetization. Like, I mean, in terms of like, I don't need to go sell shit to people and skins and all this kind of crap that the industry is totally wrapped in right now, right?
Yeah, it's just
Um,
microtransactions and things that just don't
yeah, we're
matter.
just we're just gonna forego all that stuff, and we're gonna just build a really good game. And if that's not enough, then I guess I should retire.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Be like, "Okay, I'm
Oh,
done. I'm out of here."
well, that's a
But
really,
yeah,
really good chunk of news to be able to end this. And
yeah,
I'm
super
really
exciting.
super keen to be able to see how this evolves. And I will be keeping such a close eye. So make sure if you haven't joined the Discord already, if you have not wishlisted the game, go to Steam and do it. I'll drop the links in below for the Discord, for the Steam, and just get around it, guys, while you can. So, thank you so much, Iron Taxi, for being able to jump out of your day and to be able to give us that and let us know that news. Everything that you're
Yep.
doing is for the community, and it's clearly the passion there. So, do not lose that.
I just
Do not
Yeah,
lose that.
the final word too is everybody be as patient with us as we're busy and we're working really hard, and just come in with a bit of kindness and we'll have a really good time. It's gonna take time to get things to where we want them to be, and it's an evolution, and that's this is where we are. We're gonna be what we are, and we're gonna go towards the future.
Perfect way to sign off. Thank you so
Awesome.
much for and hopefully in the next we'll give it a few weeks after launch, we'll revisit, see exactly how the
Yeah.
launch went, any new features that have come from then. But otherwise, we will see you guys in the next podcast.
Cheers.